All right. Well, good morning on this European Asian time zone. Now it's only 7 a.m. What would I be doing? Sitting in traffic? That's the advantage of work from home. You don't have to worry about, wasting the commute. So instead, today on the commute, we're going to be going over some more content on mass transit today and just kind of go through some of the things where we left off last time and then add some capabilities and possibly look at showing how easy it is to switch from RabbitMQ to another transport like, say, Azure Service Bus or something. So without any further ado, let's get started. As we've been doing through the entire series, we've been working through a sample that simulates an order processing system. It does some back-end warehouse fulfillment. We have a number of different projects in the back. We have our front-end API project. We have our services that back that API, and then we have a separate warehouse that's running. A couple episodes ago, we set up Quartz running. So we're running the sample Quartz service in another process that's talking to the same RabbitMQ broker. That's allowing us to schedule messages, schedule timeouts, things like that from a Saga. So it gives us some flexibility there. And today, what I thought would be good, because we kind of hinted at it at the end of the last show, is I thought it would be good to kind of go through and get that card number from the customer so that we can conditionally fail that routing slip. So the routing slip that we had created last time, we had the activity for the payment. We hard coded the payment delay, and we also said if the card number starts with 599. Well, where we're actually creating that routing slip in the fulfill order consumer, we're actually just hard coding that card number right now, and it would be nice to be able to pass that in so that we can actually process it. So I thought it would be good to kind of show how we could upgrade one of our services with a new message contract, because this happens. We do version messages. We'll add data to make it available. And I thought it would be good to kind of go through how that all works. So I want to show, I have all the services running, so they're all compiled and running, so they're all running on a particular version of the code that's already out there. With that version of the code already out there, I don't have any other changes to make. But I want to change the back end so that it's able to send that card number as part of the routing slip. So this is going to require me to go and change a whole bunch of contracts. Within my contracts project, I have, let's see here, where's my submit order? Submit order currently only has a customer number. Doesn't do me a whole lot of good because I also want to get their payment card number. I'm just going to call this payment card number. I'm going to add that in. The other place that I'm going to need that, obviously, is in the fulfill order command. I'm going to need and I never actually even passed the customer number there. That's interesting. I should get the payment card number. And this is one way to do this. I'm trying to show that we can change the message contracts without going too crazy. So, I think it's, enough just to put it in here. Any other domain is probably going to have more than just payment card number. You're probably going to have a payment model type that's in your contracts that knows how to support a payment. Or your fulfill order consumer might actually go and request the payment information as part of an activity within the routing slip so that it can get a valid form of payment, and that the fulfill order would just actually have like a reference to the payment type, because inevitably you're not going to put a card number in your message here. You might actually put a reference to it or a token that goes out to a PCI vault that stores customer payment information, and you wouldn't put that in kind of the ordering domain. Those seem to be two areas where you wouldn't want to blur the PCI lines. But again, we're just kind of trying to show how we can involve the contract and not build a PCI compliance system. So we'll stick with that. So the fulfill order, who sends that? Let's see. We have the execute order activity. The accept order activity. Now this is a state machine activity. It's run within our state machine, if you recall. So if we go back to our state machine and look at that, you can see that we have the accept order activity that runs when the order is accepted. And so our fulfill order the accept order activity. You can see that we now have the green squiggly here because, again, we're running the MassTransit Roslyn Analyzer. So what's our new missing property? Obviously customer number and payment card number. Customer number, what do we have in here? Do we have the customer number in the instance? I think we do. So if we do context.instance, which will get us the Saga instance that's being processed, customer number. We have that. Great. So we have the customer number. We can pull that from our Saga. We already had that. We just weren't passing it. The payment card number, though, I don't think we have that in our Saga. So context.instance.payment card number. And again, we would never put this in the order Saga, but we're going to put it in there anyway. But we don't have it, so we need to add it. So we're going to add that to our Saga to say that's part of our order, to say which payment type. It could be a payment reference. We would put that in the order, obviously, because we'd want to show what they're paying from. And we're going to make that a string. We are going to make that an automatic property. I will probably clean it up and put it up here. Now we have the payment card number. We aren't initializing it yet because we have to initialize it when the order is submitted. So we will go back to our Saga, say what creates our Saga. The only thing that creates our Saga is the order submitted event, and we need to get our payment number here. So again, context.instance.payment number, payment card number. We don't have it in our message contract, so we will add a get only property to it. That order submitted, we can just see this is going to keep going all the way up the tree. So what calls this? That would be our submit order consumer, which again has that missing property of payment card number. We want to add that, so that's going to be context.message.payment card number, which apparently I had already added to the support submit order command. I did. Okay. Order submission accepted. We aren't going to pass the payment type back for the response. Okay, good. So we're all set there. So now we've moved that all the way back up. And again, everything is still running in the background. What did I just do? Open something. Go here. So my website is still running. My warehouse is still running. The only service that I'm going to change is I'm going to change my backend service once I add this in. Because I am not going to add it to the website yet. I'm not going to add it to the controller. It'll be coming in as empty. It'll be coming in as null because it hasn't been specified. So I will stop my order service. The front end is still running. I can still go do things. Of course, it talks to the back end. It's not actually going to do anything, so I'll just leave it be. I will restart the sample service. See if it actually compiles. I didn't see any errors in Writer, so it should. And now I'm going to submit another order. Is there anything I forgot? I'm not actually passing the customer order into the routing slip activity yet, but I do have to where I'm propagating it through the system, I think. The order accepted, sends it to the order, fill order command. Okay. We'll find out. Worst case, let's just check the status of an order, make sure our back end is still running. Okay, we can see that that order faulted because that was one I ran earlier that had faulted because we hard-coded the payment card number in the front end or in the back end. So let's go look and see now. So let's go update our fulfill order consumer. Well, first let's just go do yet another end-to-end transaction just to make sure we're still working. So we've updated the contract on our back end. The front end is still using the old contract, but because it's a string, and if I had added an integer or a decimal or anything like that, I would have made it nullable because there's no guarantee it gets there, and I don't want to receive a default value. I don't want to get a decimal of 0 or a quantity of 0 in an order. I would want to get an int question mark where it's actually null versus default. So there's a key distinction there. But let's go submit a new order and just make sure that our back-end processing system is still working. Okay, we submitted an order. We got that. We go and if we check the status of it, we can see that our status is submitted. If we go and actually do the patch to process the order, see that we get that. The back end runs. I don't see any errors. Everything looks good. I get to the order state. It used it. Order fulfillment faulted. Routing slip did what we expected because we're still forcing the payment type to fault. So everything looks good there. If we go to our website now and get the status order, we can see that it's in the faulted state. So our backend is working as it is. It's still faulting every order because we hard-coded the payment card number. So let's go back to our fulfill order consumer. And now let's use that payment card number in here. Now remember, it's a string, so the string is optional. I could not specify that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say context.message.payment card number. And I'm going to apply the default was there because the previous behavior I had was to hard code the payment card number. Now that could have been pulling it from another source or pulling it from anything. The hard code was just a placeholder. But what I want to do is I don't want to change the behavior if the payment card number wasn't specified, because not specifying a payment card number was valid at a point in time in the message contract. So I need to make sure that the previous behavior of a client using an old message contract is retained. Because if I break them, and if I break them, then that's going to cause problems for systems that are running that haven't been upgraded yet, especially during rolling deploys and upgrades. We want to make sure that systems are able to be refreshed and restarted and bring up new instances without having to basically cold start the entire services system from zero. You know, we don't want to have to shut everything down and bring everything back up. So that's why we're going to preserve that existing behavior so we can incrementally roll out new services. So I'm going to preserve the existing behavior by saying if payment card number is not there, I'm going to specify that. Now I'm going to go and kill my service again, and I'm going to run it, bring it back up, because now the fulfill order consumer will pass it in there. And again, I'm going to get a new identifier. I go back here and I'm going to create a new order. I'm going to accept that order. And I'm going to go check the status of that order. And it's in the same faulted status. And we can see that it faulted because of that payment type. So same deal, same behavior, nothing changed, no new errors, everything's the same as it was. Now I want to go and say, okay, now I want to so now I've updated my whole back end. I'm able to accept a different payment number. Now I just need to go update my front end to submit that new payment number. So now I'm going to switch and focus on the web service, the sample API. Sample API controller is somewhere in here. Now let me think about this. Because I'm using Swagger and because I'm using the API, but I haven't changed my model. Yeah, so I'm going to have to actually go work on my controller because my controller doesn't have a place to put that data yet. Because I have a post to accept the order and it currently only accepts a customer number and an ID. So I'm going to add payment card number. And I realize I should have a nice view model here, but I'm not there yet. So have to level with me. And you can also see that the new here is saying I have missing members. So something new has been added to the contract and there's payment card number. And so I will add payment card number to the contract. And the only one I have to add that to is the submit order post because that's the only one that has that payment card number as part of the order. I will then save that. Now all I'm going to do is go to my website. I'm going to stop it. I'm going to run, which will build it. This will automatically pick up the new contracts, which it had obviously done because it asked me to add that property. And now it's up and running. So let's create a new test ID. let's go to the website and let's create a new order. Well, first let's refresh this page because our Swagger API contracts have changed. So if we go to post order, we can see I have a new payment card number field. So now I'm going to enter my ID. I'm going to kind of put my new customer number in. Now I have to put a payment card number in here. And if we remember right, I think it's if it starts with 5s, 5999, I think is the failure one. Let's do a 4000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to submit that. We get the customer number back. Everything looks good there. Let's go get our status now to make sure that we're in the submitted status because we haven't accepted the order yet. Submitted, same order IDs there. Obviously, we're not going to send back the credit card number. That would be bad. Go ahead and accept our order. Now, if we go back here and look, we can see order fulfillment faulted. Oh, I hadn't scrolled down. I was like, that wasn't right. So now we look, we have a different experience. We have our message handler. We show our inventory was allocated. We come in, MassTransit routing slip, allocate inventory. Our payment is probably still processing. We're still in payment execute. Oh, we already did the payment execute. So where's the send? Payment activity is done. So if we go back here, so let's go get the status of our order. See what happened. Our order is accepted. Our payment hasn't processed yet, though. Oh. No, let's take a look closer at the service, because if I remember right, we never put a positive handler on here. So we sent to the fulfill order. The fulfill order executed the activity allocate inventory. We then allocate inventory execute. We received the fill order. We sent the message to the warehouse to allocate the inventory. The response was received that the inventory was allocated. The payment activity started to execute. We sent it to the execute payment. We were done with that, the allocate inventory execute message. We received on the payment execute the Saga component state machine order state. We used the check order. So the payment activity executed and it completed, but because we didn't, so the routing slip completed was published, wasn't it? Let's see here. I'm pretty sure in our warehouse we allocated. We did remove the allocation because we timed out. The allocation expired, so we didn't cancel it, so it had to complete. I just don't think we got our state machine up to where it has a subscription. So I'm trying to think where we left off on the last time, and I don't think we got to the full state machine having the subscription. So let's go look and see what we did. Oh, I know what we did. So the reason we didn't get the routing slip event is because we got really super smart and we added this subscription. And because we added a subscription for faulted, wondering if we didn't get our subscription for, now I'm thinking out loud here. So the routing slip event consumer currently would publish routing slip completed, activity completed, or routing slip faulted. And if we go back out here, none of those events are showing up. And I think the reason for that is whenever you add a subscription, you have to tell it that you want to keep all the existing subscriptions. So with routing slips, the default behavior is to publish a whole bunch of events. Routing slip completed, routing slip activity faulted, routing slip faulted. Well, these are generic events. These are for any routing slip. And if you have multiple routing slips in your system, which many of ours did, we came to learn very quickly that these are fairly ambiguous. You can't determine what something, if you can't figure out which routing slip it came from because they all have the same tracking number. So it's hard to understand debugging a system just from a single routing slip event what happened. So the subscription ability was added to be able to narrow the delivery of those routing slip events, as well as customize them to specific types. So because I added the subscription in the fulfill order consumer, I'm no longer getting those other events because I've basically overridden the fact that those the default events will be published. There is a way to specify that you want more, or that you don't want the routing slip event to replace the others. And I believe it is called supplemental. Yeah, see, with supplemental, if the event subscription is supplemental and should not prevent the publish of an existing routing slip event. By default, any subscription suppresses publishing of events. So the documentation was actually our friend here and was actually correct. So let's add that in. And when we rebuild our service, we will. But before we finish there, let's keep going because we want to add another subscription, because right now we're only dealing with the routing slip event faulted. We want to add another subscription for order fulfillment succeeded. So the only thing we created right now is a faulted event. That's as far as we got in the last session. So I want to create one more event called order fulfillment completed. And we're going to use that event with a separate subscription for when the routing slip completes. And we are going to do that on routing slip events.completed. And we don't need any of the event contents because all we were going to do is trigger and update our Saga. And then we will go back to our Saga and say, okay, well, I have order fulfillment faulted. I now want to add completed. I need to correlate that because it doesn't use correlated by. And I want to do it in the same place that I do the other one. So where's the order fulfillment? Okay, so during accepted, when fulfillment faulted, transition to that. Otherwise, if fulfillment completed, we will transition to completed. That will probably be a new state that we'll have to add. So we've added a new state completed. We get notified of that. We modified the fulfill order consumer so that we have the order fulfillment completed event. Sorry, it's early. Voice is still waking up. So we have the completed event. We've marked them both as supplementals, so the regular routing slip events will still publish, so we can get those tracking events published. And now, if I go and so now if I go to my service here, it's already stopped, and now I just run the service again. I'm going to go back to generate a new order ID. I haven't restarted my front end. Again, keep it, the services could be deployed separately, but right now they're all just running on one machine. I'm going to create that new order. New order was created. I'm going to go ahead and accept that order. If I go out and look, I can see that my routing slip event consumers are publishing, my routing slip completed. So those are back. By changing that to supplemental, that brought back those events. So we can see those infos are now being published. We know that the routing slip completed. And now if I get the status of the order, we can see that it is in the completed state. So we went through and we added a payment card. Let's check that our payment card is actually being passed through correctly. So if we put a 5 9s in here, and not 5 9s, but 5999, that's a mental slip there. Generate GUID, copy, go back out to our website, put the new order ID in. So this one should fail when I accept it because it has the test credit card number in it. So anything that's 5999 is going to trigger our test to fault the payment. And you can see that now we're in a faulted state. So we were still able to pass a test credit card number, and now we can control whether it succeeds or fails based on the card number we pass. So we have all that information for the order and it's all there. So pretty cool. I mean, we got our info. We know that our routing slip faulted. I put our state machine in the faulted state. We have 2 subscriptions now that we're adding in so that we can track the different, the success or failure of the routing slip. Yeah, so kind of cool. The other nice to have, water, not coffee, sorry, that we added that we can now go and look at is we have the App Insights data set up. So if we go and refresh that, let's see, 726, it's currently 728. This might be one of my more recent ones. So if we go in and look now, we can see what happened. We can look and see we have the routing slip activity completed, order fulfillment completed. We loaded the Saga. You can see where order fulfillment completed was the new event we created. That event was delivered to the Saga. The Saga instance matched it. I can see that the Saga was executed against it. The begin state was accepted and the end state was completed. So we processed it successfully. So we have full end-to-end visibility all the way back to the order state receive, where it actually sent out the fulfill order. I think the only thing that the only event we haven't received in this one was the web then, because each process is different. So they're going to report their App Insights telemetry data at different frequencies. So we probably got the service data before we got the website data, but eventually that initial patch will be in here as well. So if we go back here, let's just refresh one time. There's the patch. Why did that not correlate down? Maybe it hasn't figured it out yet. Huh. Don't know why it doesn't have the same operation ID. It should. Order post, order patch, order get. The post. See that the post is linked in, went to the submit order, went to all that. Okay, so the post is correct. Post has all of the events that it processed for. The patch. Huh, I wonder why the patch didn't tie in. Interesting. Normally it does. We looked at the ones from 2 days ago. We had all the same stuff. But here we're able to see, oh, there it is. Now it's tied in. So it just took it a second to figure it out. Everything's processed on the back end by App Insights. So how quickly it ties stuff in, I have no idea. But now we can see from the patch to the order accepted, all the way down to the full processing of the order and everything. So this lets us verify that the behavior that we thought we saw in the logs was also correct here. So we can see the time, 5.4 seconds, and then I don't know what drug it out that far. Yeah, so anyway, that's how we can verify and just kind of get a visual view of all of our end-to-end tracing there. So that's, kind of covering how we do message versioning. We added a property. We didn't change the front end at first. We didn't even restart the code, so it was running with an old version. We replicated the behavior of the property not being present in the message contract by inserting the previous value, or in a live system, you would put the previous behavior. There are cases where you're going to upgrade a service and have something be mandatory. It's a forced change. I would try to make those as infrequent as possible, because again, if you're deploying multiple services and you're going to break things, you don't want to break, and you don't want to have to force you to down the entire system to be able to upgrade it. And plus, you might have messages still sitting in a queue that when you bring the service back up, those messages aren't going to have the properties. So when it deserializes to the type, those properties are going to be empty. If you put required properties or like an int, you're going to get a default, because that's like the default serializer behavior, is to throw a default value if it's missing. So you need to be cautious of those kind of things. There are some guidelines for message versioning on the documentation site. I won't read through them. Whoops. I won't read through them, but know that they're there. I think they're like in reference message versioning. And, they talk a little bit about adding, like if the int was nullable, for instance, you wouldn't want to just put int, because you would get the default value. Events, kind of the same thing of adding new things and adding different types of events. In this case, this is, changing something. This goes into that. I'm not going to read it to you, but, there are any questions you can always ask. But, generally you don't want to require new fields because if the system was up and running, you don't want to have to break it. Now, if you're building like a micro monolith and the only producer of your message contract is you and you know it's you and you're going to deploy that set of service as a single deployable entity, you can relax that restriction a little bit. I mean, you can say, you know what, this is an internal message. Nobody else produces it or consumes it, but recognize you could have messages still sitting on the queue when you deploy your service. So then you would have to actually coordinate deployment to say, okay, I want to drain the internal queues and either stop accepting new external messages that trigger those internal events or commands. Again, it just creates a deployment confusion, which if you own it and you're in test, test is the same as production, because if people are testing, production, you're going to have a live load and it's only going to be more chaotic. So definitely keep that in mind, is that you don't want to just go crazy and do that. And yeah, you have to be careful. I highly recommend making everything optional once you publish a contract, because if you break something, you'll hate it, or you'll deploy to production and you'll see errors in the log and you'll have to go reprocess a bunch of messages after you add the default behavior code back in. So just keep that in mind. So that's a pretty solid chunk of content. I wanted to, there's one other thing that I want to cover this morning, and that was, one of the questions that came up is, this is all built with RabbitMQ, and how hard would it be to switch to something like, say, Azure Service Bus? So I thought it would be good to take some time to switch these services over to Azure Service Bus and see how easy that is. So I think that's the next step we're going to do here. So what I'm going to do is I've already created an Azure Service Bus account. I've already done that stuff in Azure for me because I didn't want everybody looking at all my account passwords and everything, even though I've probably shown more of them than I probably should. So what I'm going to have to do first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop all these services. So these are all going to get shut down, including this one. I hope I can figure out how to point the Quartz service at Azure Service Bus. So let's start with that one. That's the one we're going to have to do first. So save. Okay, so there's that. Don't look at that. Nothing to see here. Yeah, right. App settings. Okay, app config localhost Quartz. I don't know if this does. That's the scheduler DB. I don't know if the sample Quartz can also work with JSON. So let's just look at the program CS. This doesn't look like it was configured to work with both. So I'm just going to go in here, add bus, configure bus. Where's the configure bus? Create using RabbitMQ. Yeah, I'm going to try to code this from memory, so let's go do another one first. So let's first start with our warehouse service. We have our program CS. We have our configure bus using RabbitMQ. First thing we need to do is we need to go to NuGet and type masstransit.azureservicebus.core. So you'll notice there's two versions of Azure Service Bus here. One is dropped at 5.5.6. The legacy transport was dropped. That's the .NET Framework only version. The only one going forward is the .NET Core Transport, which can be used with 4.6.1 or .NET Standard 2.0 or later. We're going to add this to our warehouse service. Thank you, Writer UI Glitch. You're going to add it to sample service because we're going to need it there. And we're going to need it on sample API, so we'll add it there. Okay. So our warehouse service now has that dependency. We are going to cut and paste that dependency here so that I can also add it to my, where is the CS proj, netcore.cs proj. I also need to add that dependency here. And now I'm going to use create using Service Bus? No, wait, hold on. Let's do it in the one that has the nice IntelliSense first. Create using Azure Service Bus. You can see nothing broke because I never actually configured the host, but I actually do need to configure the host here. And I'm going to go and get my connection string, paste it in here. Obviously, you would put this in an app config if you were really doing it, but I'm not really doing it. So use message scheduler. Because I didn't use queue here, and now I'm going to, I'm going to change that to queue quartz so I don't have a RabbitMQ reference in my code. Yeah, and this is the warehouse service, so that should be good. I don't think in any of my other components I hard-coded any queue names. I think I always used queue. So I think we'll be good there. Everything else was publish. Let's find out. Let's go run the warehouse and see if it works. Worst case is it'll blow up and not start, so we'll figure it out. Oh, creating up. Yep, look at that. We're connecting to topics. We're creating topics. We're creating events. Okay, so the warehouse service is up and running on Azure Service Bus. Now I need to go update the Quartz service using that same start code. So I will put this here. I don't think I have any endpoints hard-coded in this one. So I will get rid of this because I'm not using RabbitMQ. Let's find out. Sounds like it should work. Let's give it a shot. Let's go back to our sample quartz, see if this runs. Service Bus does have its own message scheduler. It does not get into crazy. Oh, because I didn't not put the dependency in there? I thought I did. MassTransit Azure Service Bus.core. Oh. Gotta love the old namespace. Which one is it? MassTransit Azure Service Bus.core. That in there. See if it builds. I just don't want to open this project up in another writer instance. So, okay, now our Quartz service is up and running with Azure Service Bus. Awesome. Next, we'll do our backend service, which we can do a lot easier because we're just going to take the code out of here and take it over to our backend sample service program. Yes, which these are like literally cut and pastes of each other, so it should be pretty easy. Yeah, we got that reference. Using Azure Service Bus. I don't think we have any RabbitMQs coded in here. I think we were pretty diligent about using Q: for everything, so that's good. And the last one we have to change is our sample API, which is going to be in Startup CS. And here, we don't have to configure any receive endpoints. We had done the incredibly short form before. Now we're going to do the little bit longer form. And we have that, we create Azure Service Bus. Now, obviously, that would be in iOptions settings and all that stuff, but we're gonna go with just the short version here. So now we're gonna run the web API. Going to run the service. Hopefully, if these were done correctly, we're all going to be set up right. Looks like so far so good. Ooh, a lot of subscriptions, a lot of queues, a lot of endpoints. It's a busy service. That one was created. The web looks like it started up. So now let's go see. Did I close all my other windows? No, I didn't. Okay. There we go. Now let's go back to our UI. I don't think I have to refresh it because I don't think anything changed. I do want a new grid though because I'm going to have a new order. I create a new grid for a new order. I'm going to post up a new order. Let's do a successful one first. Oh, big error. What do we got? Transport, trace. Ooh, look at this nasty thing. What was the actual error? Let's go look at the front. Fail. Processing request. An exception occurred submitted. The address stream is not supported. Okay, so I didn't update everything. Let's go see what I broke. Oh, Exchange. Yeah, exchanges aren't supported, so we'll just put it to queue. That should fix that. Yeah. So the exchange short queue name to send to an exchange is only supported by RabbitMQ. Everyone else supports topic or queue, and because I'm sending a command, I want to send it to a queue. I should have sent the RabbitMQ one to a queue as well, but I think I was getting a little ambitious. Let's make sure we're not actually using exchange anywhere else. And we are. So we're going to have to go change a couple more things here. We're going to have to change it there. And we're going to have to change it here also. So we're going to have to restart our web again. We should have not used exchange in those. We should have used queue in those. I don't know what I was thinking, if I was being clever or what, but yeah, we should not have done that. So make sure these are both set up. That's why the short names were created. So I should have just never created the exchange one, but I like to give full transparency to the transports in the code. So it's all good. Let's try to execute this again. Okay, so we got a 200. We got a 202, which is what we expected. So our order was accepted. We go and check it out. We can see that we should be able to query the status of it. Status is submitted. Now if we go do our patch, where's our patch? Did our patch. So now if we go and check the status again, we should see that it was accepted. Payment's going to take like 5 seconds to process. We'll sit here and vamp for a second, and then we will refresh again, and it's still accepted. So we must have screwed something up. Oh no, now it's completed. It just shows you how much slower Azure Service Bus is. Maybe not, who knows, it could be anything. But it did go to completed. So our process ran. We did the full processing. We just converted it to Azure Service Bus. We fixed a couple of the short name mistakes we had made in the earlier version. The warehouse service did its thing. The scheduler did its thing. It's sending its scheduled messages. It's doing the work that it needed to do. The warehouse. The interesting part is the allocation expired with the warehouse, which makes me think that it took us longer to send than we thought it would. Let's create a new order and see if we can get the allocation to, of course the allocation is going to expire. It was a successful order. It's if we fault that we delete it. So let's check our faulted state. Put our test credit card number in here again with 5999. We will execute that. We'll go ahead and patch that. And what we should see is we should actually see the warehouse inventory allocation get reverted. Okay. Allocation state removed. Yep, we triggered the allocation release request granted. We released the allocation, and then we sent the Quartz cancel scheduled message. Yeah, all the exact same things we did with RabbitMQ, we just did with Azure Service Bus. In fact, if we go out here, we should be able to see those entire things. I just think this is cool. That's why I keep going back to it. So 744. Looks pretty close. We can see the dependencies are now Azure Service Bus queues. Here we can see that we did a check of the order state, same contracts, same flow. Where is the, these were checks, these were checks, these were checks. Order submission accepted. This is the submit order. Okay, yeah, so this was the original submit order command that was sent. The order submitted. These MassTransit builds, that's what Azure Service Bus is. So unlike RabbitMQ, Azure Service Bus core actually writes events out to App Insights as well. So it uses diagnostic source. So we're actually able to see the retrieval of the messages from the queue and which namespace they came from. So when we look at these, you can see the whole, the dependency is Azure Service Bus, how long it took, what the remote dependency name is, message ID, conversation ID, all that fun stuff. That gets tied into the overall track, so we're able to see the actual transport as well. It creates a little more, what I would like to call noise in the feed, but it does give us that full visibility to the end-to-end transaction. I'm trying to find one of my dependencies. Like, okay, so here's the routing slip completed. And that was, yeah, see, this is definitely makes it a little more to dig through. Where is it? I don't want all these Q commands in here. I want my command. Yeah, I think we're past the point of where that was in there. Go back and see if I got the rest of the data posted, because I don't think it was there yet. Okay, so I just hadn't updated all the data yet. So here is where I actually did my patch. You can see that the send was there, MassTransit build. This is how Azure Service Bus logs the send. Then when we actually do the receive, the transport receive, you can see all of that staggered down, all the different calls. So you get the same logging, you just get a bunch of extra noise because of Azure Service Bus logging all of its data. So with that, we changed to Azure Service Bus. I will be changing back to RabbitMQ for the rest of the sessions. I just wanted to show how it is pretty painless to transfer between two different transports. You just have to be careful with that exchange thing with RabbitMQ, because if you are sending to exchanges, and some capabilities aren't supported, like RabbitMQ supports direct exchanges where you can actually create multiple instances for different paths and specify a routing key. Azure Service Bus doesn't have that capability, so obviously that wouldn't port over, but MassTransit isn't the kind of framework that's going to take you down to the lowest common denominator as far as the transports there. We have specific transport libraries so that we can take advantage of all those features and capabilities. So I don't think I have anything else for this morning. That was good. Saved me some drive time, gave you some information. Hopefully it was fun. I will be posting the videos. They'll stay on Twitch for 60 days because apparently if you have Amazon Prime, you also get Twitch Prime. So they're always up there. And eventually they'll be archived off onto YouTube as well. So thanks for joining this morning. Have a good day, and we'll talk to you on the next one.